Welcome back to the Manhwa Recap Vault. Today we're covering a little title that has exploded past 1.7 million subscribers, earned a 2025 Ringo Award nomination, and drawn direct comparisons to Spy X Family. Comparisons that, I should say, are both fair and insufficient. Because while the premise shares DNA with Tatsuya Endo's masterpiece, the Mafia Nanny carves its own territory with a tone that is darker, a romance that is more dangerous, and a female lead who is, without exaggeration, one of the most compelling characters I've covered on this channel. She can disarm a security system in 40 seconds. She can identify a poisoned meal by scent. She's been trained in counter-surveillance, crisis extraction, close protection, and tactical negotiation by an organization that officially does not exist. Her current assignment? Making sure a 4-year-old eats his vegetables. Davina Diavolo is not a babysitter. She is a graduate of the Elite Nanny Association, an institution that sounds like a finishing school and operates like an intelligence agency. She was trained to protect the children of the most powerful and most dangerous families on Earth. The kind of families where bedtime stories happen in bulletproof rooms and school runs require route planning. Her latest client is the Angelini family. Venetian mafia. Old money, old blood, old grudges. The underboss, Gabriel Angelini, needs someone to care for his son Mikey. Someone who can keep the child safe, educated, and emotionally stable in an environment where the dining table discussions occasionally involve territorial disputes and the house guests carry concealed weapons. What Gabriel does not need, what he absolutely, categorically did not plan for, is to fall in love with her. This is the Mafia Nanny, and it is one of the sharpest, most addictive titles on Webtoon right now. Before we meet the Mafia, we need to understand the institution that produced Davina, because the Elite Nanny Association is the engine that drives everything in this story. On the surface, it presents itself exactly as the name suggests, a training academy for professional childcare providers. Graduates are placed with high net worth families around the world. The curriculum includes child psychology, nutrition, education methodology, and developmental therapy. Beneath that surface, the curriculum extends considerably further. Cybersecurity, threat assessment, counter-surveillance, tactical driving, emergency medical response, crisis extraction protocols, psychological profiling, the kind of operational training that, in any other context, would produce intelligence officers or special operations personnel. The Elite Nanny Association exists because the world's most powerful families, royalty, heads of state, oligarchs, crime dynasties, have a problem that conventional security cannot solve. Their children need protection, yes, but they also need normalcy. A child surrounded by bodyguards does not develop normally. A child raised in a fortress does not learn social skills. A child who sees every stranger as a potential threat does not grow into a functional adult. What these families need is someone who can provide genuine, warm, developmentally appropriate childcare, while simultaneously functioning as a trained operative capable of neutralizing threats that conventional security might miss. Someone who looks like a nanny, thinks like an analyst, and can, if the situation demands it, act like a professional whose skill set extends well beyond bedtime routines. That is what the Elite Nanny Association produces, and Davina Diavolo is among its finest graduates. I want to be precise about Davina, because the title of this video, and the manhwa's own marketing, leans into the deadly assassin framing, and that's not quite accurate. Davina is not a killer. She is not a former hitwoman who retired to childcare. Her training is defensive, protective, intelligence-oriented. Her competence comes from an extraordinary education in operations, analysis, and protection, not from body count. This distinction matters because it shapes everything about how she operates. Davina's primary weapon is her mind. She reads environments the way a chess grandmaster reads a board, identifying threats, calculating probabilities, mapping escape routes, and assessing the emotional states of everyone in the room simultaneously. She can fight, certainly. She can defend herself and her charge with considerable effectiveness, but combat is her last resort, not her first instinct. Her first instinct is always to be 3 steps ahead of the danger, so that violence becomes unnecessary. That intellectual precision, combined with a genuine warmth towards the children she protects, is what makes her extraordinary. She's not performing kindness as a cover. She genuinely cares about the developmental well-being of her charges. The operational competence and the emotional authenticity are not contradictions. They are complementary aspects of a character who has been trained to understand that protecting a child means more than keeping them alive. It means helping them thrive. This is a woman who walks into the Angelini household, and the Angelini household is not remotely prepared for her. The Angelini family operates in Venice. Not the tourist Venice of gondola rides and glass-blowing demonstrations. The other Venice. The one built on centuries of trade, influence, and the kind of power that doesn't appear in any public record. Gabriel Angelini is the underboss, second in command of the family's operations. He is young for the position, intelligent, controlled, the kind of man who speaks quietly because he has never needed to raise his voice. When Gabriel enters a room, the room adjusts to him, not through intimidation, through gravity. He carries authority the way some people carry height. It's simply part of his architecture. He is also, beneath the operational composure, a man in considerable pain. Gabriel's wife is gone. The circumstances are not immediately clear. The Manhwa parcels out this information with disciplined restraint, but the absence has left a wound that Gabriel manages rather than heals. He functions, he operates, he fulfills his responsibilities to the family with the same precision he applies to everything. But there is a vacancy behind his eyes that he has learned to conceal from everyone. Everyone except Mikey. Mikey Angelini is 4 years old. He is bright, stubborn, emotionally perceptive in the way that children of difficult households often are, and profoundly lonely. He has had nannies before. They didn't last. Not because of the danger, although the danger is real, but because caring for the child of a mafia underboss requires navigating a household where the staff are loyal to the family before they are loyal to anything else, where certain rooms are off limits, where certain conversations stop when you enter, and where the unspoken expectation is that you will do your job without asking questions about the business that pays your salary. Previous nannies found this environment unbearable. The surveillance, the restrictions, the constant low-frequency tension of living inside an organization that operates outside the law. They resigned, one by one, and each departure reinforced Mikey's belief that people leave, that attachment is temporary, that the safest strategy is not to care too much about anyone who might disappear. Davina walks into this household and does something that no previous nanny managed. She stays. Not because she's unaware of the danger. She catalogued every threat vector within her first hour, the security gaps, the personnel risks, the structural vulnerabilities in the household's protection protocols. She identified which staff members were trustworthy, which were reporting to external interests, and which were simply going through the motions. She mapped the Angelini power structure, assessed Gabriel's operational patterns, and built a comprehensive threat profile before Mikey finished his first lunge. But she also sat on the floor with a 4-year-old and built a tower out of wooden blocks, and when it fell, she laughed, genuinely, unself-consciously, and suggested they build it taller. That moment is where the story finds its heartbeat, because Mikey, who had learned to keep new people at arm's length, looked at this woman who laughed at a fallen tower and decided, with the instant, absolute certainty that only children possess, that this one was different. And Gabriel, watching from a doorway he thought was unobserved, Davina noticed him within 3 seconds, saw something he hadn't seen in his household in a very long time, his son smiling. What follows is one of the most effectively constructed slow burn dynamics I've encountered in the genre, and it works because the attraction between Gabriel and Davina is not built on appearance or charm or manufactured proximity, it's built on competence. Gabriel Angelini is surrounded by competent people, his organization demands it, but Davina's competence operates on a frequency he's not accustomed to encountering outside of his own world. She anticipates problems, she manages Mikey's behavior with a combination of firmness and warmth that produces results no previous caregiver achieved. She navigates the household's political dynamics with a sophistication that suggests she understands power structures at a level that goes well beyond childcare. He notices, of course he notices, he's trained to notice. Small things at first, the way she positions herself in a room, always with sight lines to the exits, always with Mikey between herself and the nearest cover, the way she redirects a tantrum not through authority, but through strategic distraction, deploying the same de-escalation techniques that his own negotiators use in far more dangerous contexts. The way she handles unexpected visitors to the household with a composure that doesn't waver by a single degree. Gabriel begins to suspect that his new nanny is not merely good at her job, she is operational, and that suspicion creates a tension that electrifies every interaction between. Because Davina is maintaining a cover, not a dishonest one. She is genuinely a trained nanny providing genuine childcare, but the full scope of her capabilities is not something the Elite Nanny Association advertises. Clients know they're getting someone exceptional. They don't necessarily know the precise dimensions of that exceptionality. The cat and mouse dynamic that develops is exquisite. Gabriel probes, Davina deflects. He tests her with situations designed to reveal whether her skills extend beyond the nursery. She navigates each test with a precision that simultaneously confirms his suspicions and refuses to acknowledge them openly. And underneath that strategic dance, something far more dangerous is developing. Gabriel is falling in love with a woman he can't fully identify. And Davina, trained to maintain emotional distance, trained to treat every assignment as temporary, trained to protect her charge and move on, is finding that the professional boundaries she was taught to maintain are becoming increasingly difficult to enforce. Not because of Gabriel's appearance, or his wealth, or his power, because of how he is with Mikey. The way he reads to his son at night despite having spent the day managing operations that would exhaust anyone else. The way he remembers which stuffed animal Mikey needs to sleep. The way his operational mask drops completely the moment his son enters the room, revealing a tenderness that he permits no one else to witness. Davina was trained to observe, and what she observes is a man who became something dangerous to protect something precious. That recognition, the understanding that Gabriel's world is not a choice but a circumstance, and that his response to that circumstance has been to shield his child from it with everything he has. That is what breaches her defenses. The romance is not separate from the thriller. They are the same story told on two frequencies. Every moment of growing intimacy raises the stakes of the danger surrounding them, and every escalation of external threat intensifies the emotional bond between two people who are discovering that professional distance is a fiction they can no longer maintain. Let me explain why the Mafia Nanny has reached 1.7 million subscribers and a Ringo Award nomination, because those numbers represent something more interesting than mere popularity. The Spy X Family comparison is inevitable, and it's useful as a starting point. Both stories feature a constructed family unit where the adults are concealing their true capabilities. Both derive tension and humor from the gap between the domestic surface and the operational reality beneath it. Both center a child whose emotional well-being is the stakes that make everything else matter. But the Mafia Nanny diverges in a direction that gives it a distinct identity, where Spy X Family leans into comedy and warmth, maintaining a fundamentally optimistic tone even in its action sequences. The Mafia Nanny allows the darkness of its setting to exert genuine pressure. The Angelini family is not a parody of organized crime. It is a realistic, or at least a dramatically credible, portrayal of a world where violence is a business tool and loyalty is enforced through consequence. Davina navigates this world not as a fish out of water, but as a professional who understands exactly what she's dealing with. She is never naive. She is never shocked. She assesses, adapts, and operates, and the story respects her intelligence enough to never manufacture incompetence for dramatic convenience. This is critical, because female protagonists in romance-adjacent stories are frequently softened. Their competence is established and then selectively forgotten whenever the plot requires them to be rescued. Their intelligence is praised in dialogue and then contradicted by their decisions. Violet Matter does not make this mistake. Davina is competent from chapter 1 to the latest update. Her skills are consistent. Her judgment is reliable. When she makes errors, they are errors of emotion, trusting too much, caring too deeply, not errors of capability. She is never dumbed down to make Gabriel look stronger. If anything, the story delights in demonstrating that Davina is, in many operational contexts, more capable than the mafia underboss she works for. And Gabriel's response to this: genuine respect, growing admiration, a willingness to be outmaneuvered by a woman whose abilities he didn't anticipate, is what makes the romance feel earned. The art by Shu deserves particular recognition. The visual storytelling in this manhwa operates on multiple layers simultaneously. A single panel might show Davina reading to Mikey in the foreground while the background reveals a security detail she's already noticed and assessed. The character designs communicate personality with precision. Gabriel's controlled elegance, Davina's operational alertness masked by professional warmth, Mikey's 4-year-old uncontrolled chaos. The action sequences, when they arrive, are choreographed with a clarity that conveys both danger and competence without ever losing visual coherence. The Venetian setting is not decorative. The architecture, the waterways, the claustrophobic beauty of a city built on water, all of it contributes to a story that feels geographically specific in a way that elevates the entire narrative. Venice is a city of masks, of hidden passages, of surfaces that conceal what lies beneath. As a metaphor for every character in this story, it's flawless. And the pacing, 44 episodes in, and the story has maintained a tension that never releases entirely. Each chapter resolves one thread while tightening another. The romance advances incrementally, never rushed, never stalled, while the external threats escalate at a rate that keeps the reader perpetually uncertain about whether this constructed family can survive what's coming. What I've covered is the foundation. The opening arcs establish the household, the dynamic, the dual-layered tension that makes every chapter compelling. But there is one element I haven't mentioned that deserves attention: the way this story handles Mikey. 4-year-old characters in fiction are typically reduced to props. They exist to be cute, to be endangered, to motivate adult decisions. Mikey is none of these things. He is a fully realized child, irrational in the ways that real children are irrational, perceptive in the ways that real children are perceptive, and capable of an emotional directness that cuts through every layer of adult performance happening around him. When Mikey asks Davina if she's going to leave like the others, the question carries more dramatic weight than any action sequence in the series, because the reader knows by that point that the answer Davina wants to give and the answer her training demands are not the same. The story expands from here in directions that I won't spoil but will describe in broad strokes. The Angelini family does not exist in isolation. There are rival families. There are internal power struggles. There are figures from Davina's past, from the Elite Nanny Association itself, whose interest may not align with hers. And there is the growing question of what happens when the assignment ends, when the professional contract expires, when Davina is expected to leave the household and move on to her next placement, because Mikey has already decided she's not leaving. Gabriel is rapidly arriving at the same conclusion, and Davina herself, trained to detach, trained to treat every placement as temporary, is confronting the possibility that this assignment has become something the Elite Nanny Association never prepared her for, something permanent. The Mafia Nanny is available on Webtoon, updated every Tuesday. Written by Violet Matter, illustrated by Shu, with assistant work by Ruusu. It is 44 episodes in, with over 1.7 million subscribers, and it was nominated for a 2025 Ringo Award, the comic industry's equivalent of the Oscars. If you are looking for a story that combines operational thriller energy with a slow burn romance that actually earns its emotional payoffs, this is one of the strongest titles on the platform right now. Davina Diavolo is the kind of protagonist this genre needs more of. Brilliant, capable, warm without being soft, and strong without being invulnerable. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know in the comments. The Manhwa Recap Vault covers the most compelling stories in the genre every week. Subscribe if you'd like to be here for the next one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next recap.